Good evening, everyone, and good evening, Carrie. I'm so happy to be meeting you today. We've met in different occasions and on different events, but today we're doing this podcast because it's a real interesting topic that we will be sharing. So, welcome everyone on the Real Retail podcast. We'll be exploring this dynamic realm of ephemeral retail and the importance of visual aspect of pop-up stores and their atmospheres. And Carrie and I are going to uncover the motivations, the planning, the collaborative efforts behind doing this pop up store. And from a strategic launch to budgeting to community engagement, we're going to be looking at different facets of a beautiful project that Carrie and her student carried on in this past week or so. Good evening, Carrie, and on to you. If I can just start with the cliche, if I might say, of the general introductions. Who are you and what you do? But most importantly, what is this brilliant ideas that you came up with last year and that you repeated this year?
Hello, everybody. So, my name is Dr. Kerry Meakin, and I am the program chair of the BA Visual Merchandising and Display in the Technological University Dublin School of Art and Design. So, it's a 3-year full-time program. And it's really just based on visual merchandising. So in the third and final year, I teach a 25 credit module, which is called Major Project. Now, most of the module takes part in the second semester, and it takes part where the students are on work placement. Throughout the academic year, they choose their work placement. So it could be a department store, it could be somewhere like IKEA, and then they actually design and they install a window display or an in-store installation there. But the first semester, was always a little bit slow because the major project was all happens in the second semester. So a few years ago, I thought I actually need to make this beginning of the semester much more interesting. And I need the students to work together on a group project. So I thought, what could that be? And I thought, okay, let's hold a student pop-up shop. So we had Galia in for a talk a couple of years
A
ago.
couple of
Galia,
years
you may
ago, right?
remember that. So it starts off when the students come in September and they start the semester. So they're given a brief, and I put them into groups. So not with their friends, but in groups of 3 or 4. And the first thing they've got to do is research. So they've got to do research on pop-up shops. And this is where Galia's research is very important for them to look at. So they investigate Galia's work and they look at pop-up shops. And they also, luckily enough, we subscribe to the trend forecasting website called WGSN, which is the Worth Global Style Network. So they need to, the pop-up shop needs to sit across quite a few different concepts. So they need to look at the pop-up shop and how it works, but they also need to make sure that the pop-up shop sits within a current trend. And it's the marrying of those two that they can find a little bit difficult.
Right. Anyway, brands find difficulties in finding that balance, and this immersive period is not an easy period. Is there a process that you guide your students through to understand what research is, what analysis is, and finally what choices will be sitting at the end?
Well, luckily enough, because they're third year students, they will have already done a lot of problem-based learning briefs. So by the time they get to third year, they're well used to research and they get a lot of feedback on their previous research. So the thing is, they understand that in-depth research will lead to better concepts. So, the concepts will only develop from gathering research, looking at research, and then actually being inspired by the research to come up with their 3 ideas. So each team, so say for example, this year we had 4 teams. So each team then presents 3 concepts to the rest of the class, and we bring in other year groups for this. And then what happens is they have taken one of those concepts which they've developed. They have to draw up, we use SketchUp and CAD. So they have to source a spot on the campus that they can set the pop-up shop up in. So they have to contact management, they've got to contact estates, they've got to say, is it okay we put a pop-up shop here? So I need to see all that correspondence. And then they measure that area, and then they actually start designing it. So by the time it comes to their concept presentation, they've got this space, they've drawn up the space, and they've put their concepts into it. And then that's what they present to the rest of the class, and they present to other class years. And then we vote. We have a vote on which one we all prefer.
Okay, yeah. Interesting. And so this evolves 2 important steps. First of all, working not only on a conceptual idea, but actually conceiving a real life idea that will actually be voted on as a yes or as a no. And this is a very important thing. And then you put them in a real life experience. You have to call someone, you have to take permissions, and this will make them understand there is a lot of dealing with humans and peoples when we are creatives. So Carrie, guide us into this planning process of the pop-up store. We voted on the pop-up of the year, the theme that will be adopted, and then this is when the real work starts. You have many people onboarded on that project, and this is even more complicated to deal with. So how do you do it?
Absolutely. So what happens is once the winning, or should I say the preferred pop-up shop is voted for, and sometimes what happens is it's not just that one concept, because sometimes there are other things that other students came up with that we think, you know what, well, that's a really good idea, but we'll pull that in as well. So, and then also the space. So the space that was decided on this year is what we call the middle foyer. So it's in a big atrium, and the ceiling space, it goes up by 5 stories. So it's a big space. So what they needed to do was, we actually have these walls that we can use for exhibitions, end of year exhibitions. So they had to get permission to use the walls. They were granted permission. And so then what happens is the class then comes back together into one. So previously they've been divided up into their groups to do their research in the concept. So now the class is back together at one, because they're all now working towards that one goal, which is the pop-up shop, and to run the pop-up shop for 3 days. So then the students are divided up. So we have social media team. We've got the team that gathers the clothes that are going to be sold. So they're responsible for collecting all the items. The items are pre-loved clothing brought in by students and donated. And then all those clothes have got to be steamed. They've all got to be curated. So actually, interestingly, the theme that won this year was called Digital Nature. Nice. So that was the theme of this year's pop-up shop. And the name they called it was Curated, because they have to curate all the items. So they got to go through everything that comes in. So what they did was the social media team launched on Instagram. It was called curated.popup. And they also organized a photo shoot. So once they started getting the clothes in, the students then put on a photo shoot with themselves as models, modeling the clothes. Luckily enough, we have a photographic studio, so they were able to get a professional photographer, a student, sorry, who's studying photography. So they got some great shots, and then they were able to upload these onto social media to entice people to come in, and also to say, look, this is happening on the campus between the 22nd and the 24th of November. So social media kind of started happening maybe about 4 or 5 weeks before. So then other teams are looking at, well, okay, so what props are we going to use? So as I said, the theme is digital nature. Now, another caveat is that everything has to be sustainable. So they have no money for props. So basically, they've got to use what we already have in the studio. So the prop team then was looking at that. They covered things with tin foil. They did spend money on spray paint, so they sprayed things to all come into the theme. So there's kind of the prop team, there's a social media team, and then there's the kind of the curation team. So, you know, students are all working on different parts of the project, but all towards that one same goal.
So several elements very important to the development of pop-up stores were evoked here.
I'm sorry. Pardon me. Apologies.
No worries. The development of a 3-day pop-up store is actually months of planning ahead. So we started at naturally the beginning of the term during September, and then the concept has been created, voted on. There is the pre-pop-up phase, which is very much related to communications and social media. And with that, we go on developing the social channel, and then photography, and then curation of the content to animate social media. And then we are closer to the date of the pop-up, and there is this 3-day pop-up store. Okay. The pop-up is there, it's set up. We have integrated all design elements and the products. How did we manage ourselves during those 3 days? Is there any shift development? What happens in there?
Well, I have to say something that they did fantastically well that probably I didn't mention was the curation of the clothes on the rails. So they color coded the rails. The rails looked absolutely fantastic. They had like blue rails, they had natural rails. The curation of the clothes on the railing was really, really excellently done. I actually was really surprised at how well they actually did that. So then, yes, there was a rota which they did themselves, but the enthusiasm of the students for the project was so high that actually everybody wanted to be there all the time. So the 2 days, the pop-up shop started on the Wednesday and it was on the Thursday, and then it continued on to the Friday. Now, normally they're on work placement on the Wednesday and the Thursday, but I arranged for them all to have those days on campus to man the shop, but they just wanted to be there. So it was very hard to get them to do a rota, even for lunch, because they were so excited by the whole thing. So we had a launch at 12 o'clock on the Wednesday. We had a countdown. A queue had formed. Students from all over the TU Dublin came to it. So that was really excellent. So yeah, it went very well, and they made quite a bit of money. They made, by the close of the pop-up shop, they made nearly €2,500.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So 2 questions that I need to ask there. During the duration of the pop-up, all the team was there. Was there anyone in charge of also social media communications? Did you do any live streaming? And did you do any events during the pop-up, such as a draw, a styling session, or others?
There was an Instagram area. So they actually had set up an area for Instagram, you know, like for Instagram
Instagrammable.
photographs.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
they took photographs, and actually they bought plain brown shopping bags, but they branded them all with curated. That took quite a bit of work. So they had photographs, Instagram photographs of people standing in front of a digital nature background with their bags. So they were Instagrammed, and obviously updates on the store were Instagrammed. So events wise, what they did was on the Thursday night, they had a live DJ.
Nice.
Yes.
Yes.
So the campus was open till 9 o'clock. So from 6 to 8, they could have a DJ. So that was really good. So that was kind of, advertised. And actually, they asked for everybody that made a purchase, they asked for a €1 donation to charity. So they actually raised over 200 and I think it was about €50 donations to charity by people giving the extra €1 donation. So that was going on, and yeah, so, and then on the last day, everything was marked down 50%. So everything was half price. So the pricing was interesting. So what they did was they had 4 colors. And I think they started at €2, €5, €10, and 15, €20. And all of the rails, all of the hangers, sorry, were color coded. And they just actually used colored tape, colored sticky tape. So when somebody came to the till, the individual items weren't priced, but they could tell by the color coding that was placed all around the shop how much the garment was. So and on the last day, they just said half price. Everything was 50% off. So that was really, really good.
Interesting. Anyway, this organization that goes beyond the design, or when we talk about visual merchandising, we always tend to see that only creative side, whereas everything that you have been explaining and talking about is pure organization, pure referencing, thinking about coming in with the merchandise, organizing, categorizing, pricing, etc. So this is a really interesting job. But more, if we go further down the road, there is this phase of putting together an event, but then dismounting everything and just packing that 3-day work. How do you do that, Carrie?
Well, we were actually kind of lucky because it finished on the Friday, but they were able to take the clothes away, the remaining stock, and the remaining stock is actually quite handy. What we'll do, we'll keep some of it because we can use it in our fashion visual merchandising classes, and then others we will edit it and we will take some of it to a charity shop so they can sell it on. So, but then the main the props actually could remain in place till today, until Monday. So that was actually quite handy that we didn't have to take everything away at the same time. So, because it was on the campus, but I can understand in reality, in a real pop-up shop, it might have to come out immediately, but we were quite lucky. We were quite lucky that way. But yeah, they kept trying to get me to run it for longer. They were very disappointed that it had to come out because they were so enthused by it. So yeah, there was a little bit of negotiation there. So yeah, unfortunately, there's a time within it has to take place. You know, and I said that's all part of the pop-up shop. There's a cut-off time, because otherwise it's not a pop-up. It's just kind of dragging on. So
Exactly.
I said it's short excitement, isn't it, within a time? Yeah.
Keeping that momentum and that hype. I believe that after everything I have seen on your LinkedIn, the way the pop-up looked and everything you explained, that this could be labeled as a positive and a successful pop-up. However, for us, it's always important to be able to measure success. For you, you have 2 types of measurements: measuring the pop-up or an all, and measuring the project's success. How well you have also planned on putting on this type of project. So let's start with measuring the success of the pop-up, of that 3 days pop-up.
Well, I mean, one of the measurements of success is I suppose the turnover, the money that the students made. So what happens with it's a relatively small class. There's only about 11 of them in it. So we made 2,500. Some of that, 10% of that will go to charity. And then the rest of it will actually go towards funding their props for their major project in the second semester. So each student will get between 150 and 180 each. They'll all get the same amount of money. So it's also a fundraiser for the students to help them, finish off their final project in their final year. So I suppose that's a really good measurement of success. And this was actually the most successful year that we've had so far. So that was really, really good. And I think that actually boiled down to the quality of the clothes that they got. They really did curate So not everything that they got went onto the shelves. They really did look at everything, and they spent a lot of time prepping the clothing. So everything was ironed and steamed, so it looked the best it possibly could. Now, the other interesting measurement, because I have got to do this, is marking. And that is very interesting in this instance and for this project, in that it's peer marking. So what happens is each student has got to mark themselves and their peers under 4 criteria. So they've got to mark them under 4 criteria out of 100. And then, so I collate then an Excel spreadsheet with all those marks. So say, for instance, Galia, let's say you've given yourself 75%, okay? But your peers have averaged the mark for you at 65%. So that's quite interesting, because it means I can talk to each of the students, and it's actually, you know, I think as a lecturer who marks, it's very interesting for me for, you know, the mark that the student is giving themselves against the mark that they're getting from their peers. And it's also interesting, it's a sign kind of, I suppose, of emotional intelligence. But look, I sit down with the students at the end of the day. If I don't agree with the marks due to personality clashes, I can change the marks, but it's really good for me to have that indicator. Yeah.
So there is this self-evaluation, the evaluation of peers, and then you come and complete with your evaluation on the project and on the student.
Yes.
Are there also other key outcomes or achievements that you think students have experienced and you have experienced out of this project?
I think for students, it's a really good opportunity for them to work in a team, you know, and to have to find their strengths within a team. I also think that for some of the more, for the students who are introverted, it shows them that they actually need to kind of speak up and let their voice be heard, and for the students who are extroverted, I think it highlights to them that they need to listen to everybody,
Right.
you know, that
Yes.
it's not always the loudest voice is the best voice. And I think that's a really good learning curve for both for all types of personalities of students to work together in a team like this.
Really interesting. And actually, at the beginning, when you started saying how this project was a real life situation project, going and talking with people that are outside the class boundaries is also something that shakes us up before going to the real world. You work on different projects, Carrie. Some of them are directly related to the static, if we want to use the term static, or traditional window, and other in-store design projects. And then you experimented with pop-ups. Is it more difficult to think of a pop-up than thinking of a traditional retail store setup, or do we find like points of similarities between the two? The fact that we're working with a pop-up store changes things in terms of design?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're quite lucky in that from first year, they work, they start working on CAD, computer aided drawing, in first year. And so they're already from the second semester in first year, they're doing kind of simple planning, things like wall planograms, you know, just like, you know, 2D into kind of 3-dimensional wall planograms. And then in second year, they work on a project where they design a stand for a fashion, I suppose, exhibition, you'd call it, called Pure in London. So they get a brand and they've got to design for that brand in Pure London. Now, obviously hypothetical, that doesn't actually get built. And then while they're actually doing the pop-up shop, they're also doing 2 other design modules. One is for they design a retail store, and also they design a window display for a high-end brand. quite a large window and then smaller rollout window. So they're also kind of doing that. So they're still kind of doing all those things. So I would think there's a lot of similarities in designing a three-dimensional window and designing also a pop-up store. I mean, they both need to be, the research needs to go into both of them. A concept has got to be, developed, and then three-dimensional props have got to be made. So there's still that similarity. I mean, the difference is for the pop-up store is the product is there. It's touchable, and you've got to make that as appealing as possible to the public passing through. Whereas in a window display, it could be on a fabulous mannequin if it's fashion, or it could be, on a plinth or a podium, or on a prop if it's homewares. So it's similar, except that you actually want this stuff. The product is there, it's touchable, and we want it to sell from that space.
So the two questions that I have are pretty much related to that idea. In a pop-up store, we design to integrate people within the design. And this is something that might complicate things for us. So how about this dimension that is pretty much experiential with products and props that sometimes might be very simple, such as the sustainable props that you had to use in this pop-up?
Yeah, well, I mean, as I said, they didn't have any budget. So we had some props that had been used for previous projects. So they would have taken them, they might have used the OSB. OSB board is always it's a great product for us. And MDF. So, they could make tables from OSB, they could use MDF to make tables. They actually spent some money and bought some extra rails. We had some rails, but they actually bought more. They wanted them uniform. So, but they got the money paid back from that from the shop. So it was, taking things that we had, repurposing them by changing their shape, spraying them, covering them. So, yeah, so it was basically, I mean, as visual merchandisers know, we can make anything look good by basically with very, very, very little, to hand. That's our job, isn't it?
It is, and sometimes not most of the times, I want to say it is beautifully done and brilliantly done, because just putting things in the right context could be very appealing to consumers. Sometimes we have beautiful props that are not used in the right way, and then they don't have or like appeal in the best value that they should. Carrie, I think I asked you all of the questions that I had to ask related to that pop-up. Any other comments or concluding comments that you want to add?
Just that, well, I'm moving to a new school. So I'm starting there on Friday. So what we're going to do is next year, we're going to roll it out across we're on different campuses in the city centre. So actually it's going to grow even bigger. So we're going to actually have it on more campuses. So that's really exciting.
Congratulations for that. All the best for the new role.
Thank you.
And looking forward to learn about your new projects, bigger, better, and nicer. Thank you so much, Carrie, for your time.
And thank you.
And see you soon, I hope.
See you soon. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.